Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated December 24th, 2022. In this video, we are going to talk about two important newspaper articles. Now, these articles are going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. So, let's discuss these two important newspaper articles. So, the first important newspaper article talks about what is known as Anti-Conversion Law or States Freedom of Religion Amendment Act, which has been given a nod by Uttarakhand's governor. So this basic law basically applies to what Uttarakhand state. Now it is a state law, but what's more important are the facts regarding the fundamental rights, the previous judgments which have been passed on the anti-conversion laws. Now let's deep dive into this particular newspaper article. Now this article says that the Uttarakhand governor has given his nod to the State's Freedom of Religion Amendment Act, the government said on Friday. And the state will now issue a formal notification of the amended bill, after which forced conversion will come under the category of crime. And apart from it, as per the amended bill, conversion by force, greed or fraud will be a crime in the state, and those found guilty will face imprisonment for up to 10 years in cases any kind of conversion happens only on the basis of force, greed or fraud. Now, under the new law, a fine of rupees 50,000 had been made compulsory, and anyone found guilty of conversion will have to pay up to 5 lakhs to the victim. Now, this is the States Freedom of Religion Amendment Act 2022 of the Uttarakhand government, right? Now these kinds of acts have been passed earlier also, and Supreme Court has a lot to say regarding this. Now Supreme Court says that Supreme Court in its various judgments had held that the state and the courts have no jurisdiction over an adult's absolute right to choose a life partner. This is what the Supreme Court has said, and it also has said that India is a free and democratic country, and any interference by the state in an adult's right to love and marry has a chilling effect on the freedoms. And apart from it, the intimacies of marriage lie within a core zone of privacy which is inviolable. This has been given in what is known as Puttaswamy judgment, that is right to life and personal liberty under Article 21, right? Now the absolute right of an individual to choose a life partner is not in the least affected by the matters of faith. This is what the Supreme Court has to say. Now the various judgments we are going to discuss, or the previous judgment we are going to discuss. Now the first judgment which comes into our mind is the Hadia judgment of 2017, which says that matters of dress and of food, of ideas and ideologies, of love and partnership are within the central aspects of identity, and neither the state nor the law can dictate a choice of partners or limit the free ability of every person to decide on these matters. And apart from it, we have the privacy judgment, which is very important, very significant. Now it talks about fundamental right to privacy, right? Autonomy of the individuals was the ability to make decisions in vital matters of concern to life. This is what is known as privacy judgment, or the Puttaswamy judgment of 2017. Now earlier also we have seen these kinds of cases. For example, in the Lata Singh cases, the apex court held that India is going through a crucial transformation period, and the constitution will strongly only if we accept the plurality and diversity of our culture. We need to accept that there are various faiths and interreligious marriages can happen, and relatives disgruntled by the interreligious marriage of a loved one could opt to cut off social relations rather than to resort to violence or harassment. In many of the cases, we have seen the cases of honor killing or many of these cases, and in these cases the relatives can just cut down the relations instead of the violence or harassment, right? And we have also have Soni Jerry case of 2018, in which the Supreme Court warned judges from playing super guardians, succumbing to any kind of sentiment of the mother or the egotism of the father. Judges need to separate their emotions, and they need to look it is in a very rational way. They do not have to play the role of father in this case. They do not have to play the role of super guardians in any of the cases like this. All right. So now we also have 2020 judgment of the Allahabad High Court, which is basically known as Salamat Ansari Priyanka Kharwar case, which says that right to choose a partner or live with a person of choice was part of a part of a citizen's fundamental right to life and liberty, which is guaranteed under Article 21, which we also know in the Puttaswamy judgment case, right? And it also held that earlier court rulings upholding the idea of religious conversion for marriage as unacceptable are not good in the law. This is what the previous judgments have to say regarding this particular case of anti-conversion. Now let's conclude this particular newspaper article in the way that the government implementing such laws needs to ensure that the fundamental rights of people are not curbed in this case, and they also needs, or legislators need to ensure that it doesn't hamper the national integration, and instead these laws need to strike a balance between the freedoms and malefied conversions. Malefied conversions should not happen, but at the same time freedom or fundamental rights of freedoms need not to be curbed. So a right balance need to be struck between freedoms and malefied conversions. This is what we conclude from this particular newspaper article. All right, so this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now this particular newspaper article talks about two bodies which are CAG and DRDO. So this article says that CAG pulls up DRDO for delay in the completion of projects and failure to achieve key parameters. Now this particular information is not important. What's important are the constitutional bodies in this, and that is why this particular newspaper articles is important for the GS paper 2, that is constitutional bodies, right? So this article says that assessing the mission mode projects of the DRDO, the Comptroller and Auditor General CAG has flagged time and cost overrun in completion of projects, irregular closure of projects, declaring them successful despite non-achievement of one or key objectives and parameters, and taking up new projects for realizing the unachieved objectives of the earlier closed projects declared as successful. So in this case, the CAG has audited the Defense Research and Development Organization, and he has found that there are various cost overruns. That is, that some of the projects required more money than it was first calculated. There are irregular closure of the projects. Before even completing the projects, they are declared as completed, right? So these are some of the irregularities that the Comptroller and Auditor General has found regarding the DRDO, because they have been on mission mode projects, right? And they are not able to fulfill all of these projects. This is what the Comptroller and Auditor General is saying. Now this article is significant for us, but what's more important are the constitutional bodies in it. Now the first constitutional body here is Comptroller and Auditor constitutional body we are going to discuss in this particular newspaper article is Comptroller and Auditor General. So who basically is CAG? So CAG is basically an independent authority under the Constitution of India, and he is head of the Indian Audit and Account Department and chief guardian of the public purse. He audits all of the accounts relating it. And you would know the earlier things also, like the coal scams and all of these, they came into highlight by the CAG himself, right? So this institution is very, very, very powerful, right? And it is the institution through which the accountability of the government and other public authorities to the parliament and the state legislatures, and through them to the people, is ensured. Accountability of the government is ensured. This particular institution basically audits all of the accounts of the government, and if there is any irregularity in their accounts, then it is brought to the light by the CAG, right? So now CAG comes under the Constitution of India. So there are various constitutional provisions regarding the CAG. So basically the first article which we are going to talk about is Article 148, which broadly deals with the CAG's appointment, oath and conditions of service. Then we have Article 149, which deals with the duties and powers of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Then we have Article 150, which says that the accounts of the union and of the state shall be kept in such a form as the President may, on the advice of CAG, prescribe them. So CAG here also in Article 150 becomes important. Then we have Article 151, which says that the reports of the Comptroller Comptroller and Auditor General of India relating to the accounts of the Union shall be submitted to the President, who shall cause them to be laid before each house of the Parliament. So he directly reports to the President of India, right? So now the reports of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India relating to the accounts of a state shall be submitted to the Governor of a state, who shall cause them to be laid before the legislature of states. In case of the center, he submits the report to the President. In case of the states, he submits his report to the governor. Now we also have Article 279, which talks about the calculation of net proceeds is ascertained and certified by the CAG, whose certificate is final in this particular case. Now these are some of the constitutional provisions. Then we also have the third schedule, and the third schedule's section 4th of the section 4th prescribes the form of oath or affirmation to be made by the judges of the Supreme Court and the CAG of India at the time of the assumption of office. Then we have 6th schedule, and according to this schedule, the district council or the regional council should be kept in such a form as the CAG prescribes with the approval of the President, and in addition these bodies' accounts are audited in such a manner as CAG may think fit, and the reports relating to such accounts shall be submitted to the governor, who shall cause them to be laid before the council. So all of the bodies are audited by the CAG, right? So CAG becomes very important. And if we talk about the term of the CAG, then he is appointed for a tenure of 6 years or 65 years age, whichever is earlier, that is going to be applied to him. For example, if he becomes a CAG at the age of 62, now that he has 6 years of tenure, right? But he will end his tenure at 65, that is 3 years of service only, right? Because whichever is earlier. And now CAG can be removed by the President only in accordance with the procedure mentioned in the Constitution, that is the manner same as removal of the Supreme Court judge. So he is basically very independent, and his removal requires a lot of process, right? So CAG's post is important, very significant, and he is ineligible to hold any office either under the government of India or any other state once he retires or resigns as the CAG, right? This basically ensures the integrity of the CAG. Now let's talk about the functions of the CAG. So CAG basically derives its audit mandate from the different sources like the Constitution of India, Article 148 to 151. We have Comptroller and Auditors General's Duties, Powers and Conditions of Service Act 1971. We also have important judgments. Then we have the instructions of the Government of India. Then we also have Regulations on Audits and Accounts 2007. This basically provides the audit mandate to the CAG. Now CAG audits the accounts related to all expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India, Consolidated Fund of each state, and the Union territories having a legislative assembly. And he also audits all expenditure from the Contingency Fund of India and Public Accounts of India, as well as the Contingency Fund and Public Accounts of each state. And he also audits all trading, manufacturing, profit and loss accounts, balance sheets, and other subsidiary accounts kept by any department of the central government and the state governments. And he also audits the receipts and the expenditures of all bodies and authorities substantially financed from the central government, central or state revenues. Government companies are audited by him, and other corporations and bodies which when so required by the related laws. And here is the case of DRDO. All the bodies and authorities substantially financed from the central and the state revenues. DRDO is basically substantially financed by the central revenue, right? And that is why the CAG has the power to audit the DRDO, and that is how the irregularities have been found in the DRDO's mission mode projects, right? Now basically the CAG also audits the accounts of any other authority when requested by the President or the Governor. For example, he can also audit the local bodies, and he also advises the President with regard to prescription of the form in which the accounts of the center and the states shall be kept. So these are basically the functions of the CAG. And he also submits his audit reports relating to the accounts of the center to the President, who shall in turn place them before the House of the Parliament. He also submits his audit reports relating to the accounts of the state to the Governor, who shall in turn place them before the state legislature. And CAG also acts as a guide, friend and philosopher of the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament. Now, Public Accounts Committee is important. You need to consult the Lakshmikant in order to understand what is known as Public Accounts Committee. We will not get into the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament, right, at this point of time, but it's also important. Public Accounts Committee, you need to know about various committees in the of the parliament, right? So he basically acts as a guide, friend and philosopher of the Public Accounts Committee. So these are the functions of the CAG. We have talked about the powers of the CAG. We have also talked about the term of the CAG, and we have talked about the irregularities that he has found in the DRDO in mission mode projects. So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. And this is it for the day. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video and subscribe to this channel. Have a good day. Bye.